Let's look more at this situation, including at the signal from Sweden and Finland that they could, in fact, try to join NATO in the wake of this Russian invasion. Let's bring in defence and security analyst Jacinta Carroll. Thanks very much for your time. It's an interesting development. How likely do you think it would be, and what's the process from here?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Well, first of all, this development is extraordinary. It's a sign that Russia has, spectacularly failed in its attempt to achieve its strategic objectives by its invasion of Ukraine. We do know that it is fairly likely to happen. The Swedish and Finnish Prime Ministers met just in the last 24 hours and have jointly affirmed their intention to go to their people and their parliaments to discuss this matter. Finland has talked about this being determined from its perspective within a matter of weeks, not months, whereas from Sweden, which of course isn't quite as proximate to Russia, although there have been Russian incursions of Swedish airspace in recent weeks, Sweden has signalled by the end of June. And we do know that NATO will be meeting on the 29th and 30th of June. So that's the time frame that we're looking at. We're likely to see debates in Parliament. But look, the extraordinary failure of Russia to be seen as a powerful country, it has not only lost that, but it's managed to drag a country like Sweden, which, as you've noted in your introduction, it's effectively been neutral in various ways, but effectively since the Napoleonic Wars. So to be able to drag a country that chose to be separate from the Second World War, has chosen to date to not be a formal ally of NATO, although it is a partner, is just amazing. As recently as January and February, when things were stirring up in Ukraine, a number of very well-regarded surveys were done in Finland and Sweden. And in both countries, you saw a minority supporting joining NATO, sometimes around the 20 and 30 percentile. That's in a majority for both countries now. So I think it looks like a fait accompli.
Yeah, and as you say, this is incredible, the history of Sweden, and as well, the recent history and recent comments, because as early as this year, people were thinking, well, you wouldn't dare to join NATO given what's about to happen in Ukraine possibly and the threats around that. Now it's the opposite, that Russia is so preoccupied with this so far ultimately, disastrous invasion that it's the perfect time for these countries to join. They can do so without any real threat to them, and they can do so as well knowing that the Russian threat is real. This is not something that Russia can deny anymore.
Yeah, and your second point is absolutely spot on, Tom. But previously we'd seen this policy that's become known as Finlandisation, not only Finland but Sweden and others, who have chosen to consciously be neutral in order to stave off any threat from Russia. What we've seen in the past few weeks is that Russia has not only shown that it is a real threat, but also, and this is the thing that has caused really the world in many ways to rally around the Ukrainian cause, the Russian government has shown that it's actually willing to do anything, to throw aside norms, conventions that it's a signatory to, even its own laws, to just throw brute force at trying to get its way. This means that for every country, we have a rogue state. It is like seeing a terrorist organisation running a state. So that means that it's not possible to sit back and hope that the norms of diplomacy and normal escalation, defence by deterrence, as it's known, these things just aren't seen to work, because we do know that the Russian government will do whatever it takes to be able to take what it wants, to be able to attempt to make itself look like it is a strong power. And of course, it's not only failed in doing that in relation to Ukraine, but the Putin administration's goal of trying to show a stronger Russia and, of course, steal the great resources, the richness that's in eastern Ukraine, has failed extraordinarily, so that whatever happens, its country will come out far less powerful. We've already seen that its military was really a house of cards, not that capable. the sanctions are starting to bite. It will be economically worse off. And of course, the worst thing, it's lost any moral standing, any standing for statesman-like behaviour or humanitarian behaviour.
So much has sort of turned to where it sort of ends, and Russia obviously limiting for now where its army is and trying to get some gains in Ukraine. Do you think if it manages to do that, as much as everybody thinks Vladimir Putin, has become sort of hell-bent on taking Ukraine, there might be just that moment where he thinks, all right, solidify these gains, let's end this war for now, try to stabilise my economy. And even if he eyes the rest of Ukraine at a later date, try to just claim that as the victory if he's got the Donbass region, for example?
Yeah, look, there's a few interesting pieces in that. Certainly looking at what economists are saying, particularly those who are focusing on the impact of the sanctions and the way that the Russian economy works, it appears that the government thinks it can ride this out. Russian people have been suffering from terrible economic deprivation for a number of years now, and it seems that the government really is impervious to this. As long as they can shore up having some funding, and of course they have a close economic relationship and support with China and are looking to others. So the economic piece isn't really going to, it seems, have that significant an impact on the government in the short term, which is why it's very important that the international community and particularly corporations continue to hold up these sanctions. Militarily, however, as you've said, it's very likely that the Russian government will, having said that its plan now, it's completely changed everything that it said initially, that its plan now is just to solidify and focus on the east of Ukraine. Look, that's probably a smaller goal right now. But the concern is that this situation and Russia's behaviour means that no one really thinks that it would stop there, even if it pauses for some time. Yeah. So I think you're seeing, certainly within Europe and in the NATO alliance more broadly, a coalescence around this has to be a resounding victory, and Russia can't be allowed to continue to bite off, annex and control bits of countries. And it is doing this in a number of countries, not just Ukraine.
And that's true, further parts, further west as well. So it's a good point to make. Jacinta, great to get your thoughts today. Thank you.
My pleasure, Tom.